Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey, so I'm a YouTuber, right? Yeah, I know, derogatory. And on one fateful day, I was anxiety-ridden, like most days, and realized that I wanted to stream more on YouTube. But YouTube is tricky. I wanted to live stream, but I wanted it to be an event. So I was like, okay, let's do a live stream centered around Genshin Impact ships, right? Who would win in a fight? Fun. It was a hit and a grand old time. I did it again, but this time we pit the men and Genshin and the men and Honkai Star Rail against the other. Who is the best man? It was also a hit and a great time. And Kaveh won, if you're wondering. Then I found myself sitting there contemplating. The next option for this series would obviously now be to pit the women against each other, right? But something stopped me. A gut feeling and a piece of knowledge that I didn't want to face, and yet I found myself saying out loud, that won't be as popular. People don't like the female characters as much as the guy characters. Ashamed to have even doubted my lovely ladies for a second, I proceeded nonetheless, and thus the Genshin vs Honkai Star Rail women bracket went live. Unfortunately, the prophecy had come to pass. It was not a hit. There was a considerable difference in the amount of viewers who tuned in. Mind you, nothing really changed. The time stayed the same, the format stayed the same, and yet when the topic changed, so did people's interest. It was a sad yet predictable outcome to this series. Do people really not give a crap about the female characters in Genshin? Are female characters treated in this Genshin fandom community differently than the guy characters? And does it change based on which community you're in? Is this because Genshin Impact writes their women characters poorly? Hey, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is E, as in like East. I thought you said Weast. And today I've decided to get to the bottom of all of these questions I just asked and more to really uncover how women are treated in Genshin Impact and how they are treated by the fandom. To see more of this amazing content, make sure to like and subscribe and send to 15 other people to make sure you don't see a dead person in your room tonight. Hi. And also follow us on twitch.tv/eissocial. I can't go to Ren Fair this year, so I'm bringing Ren Fair to myself, so that's why I look like an elf. So stop asking questions. Okay, there's going to be a lot to this video, but I want to try and narrow our discussion down to two central points. One, how does the game treat their own women characters versus two, how does the fandom treat them? Let's start off with how the game writes their women characters, and let's see if there is any difference between them and how they treat the fellows. First off, what makes a female character well written? Girl, this question has been asked a million times, I'm sure, and there are plenty of think pieces, articles, and academic discussions that have been held over this very question, I am certain. But basically, in my opinion, a female character is written well when the character in question exists in their story and they just happen to be a girl. You would think this would be simple, but alas, it very much is not for some reason. A lot of female characters in popular culture are presented in a lot of shitty ways. You have the hot female sidekick in the action movies that doesn't really do anything but just be hot and serve. You have the female character that only exists or lives to be around with the main male character. You got the Smurfette principle that was popular in children's media, where you have a whole group of guys with individual personalities, and then there is the token girl whose whole shtick is, I'm a girl. Or you have, in my humble opinion, one of the worst type of female characters, which is the #girl boss. The character that is a strong and independent, I don't need a man lady who just reeks of corporate inauthenticity. The types of characters that are obviously made to say, see, we are so progressive. Look at that girl boss go. And it's the most one-dimensional, infuriating, it's such a big deal that I am a woman and in charge thing. And it's just, it grinds my gears so bad. Cause then it's like, everybody's gonna hate it, and then now nobody wants women in their media anymore. There are a ton of more tropes that lazy writers employ when trying to write female characters, but those were some of the basics and some of the most popular. Good female writing is just letting the character simply exist. She happens to be the leader of some organization, but it's not like made a huge deal that she is because she's a woman. She kicks ass and is super smart by virtue of her situation and her goals, not in spite of being a woman. She has a tragic backstory story or a peaceful one, and she just exists without the writers having to make her story revolve around a man or paint a big red arrow pointed towards her going, "See? A woman! Aren't you happy?" There are layers to this, of course. Just because a woman's story revolves around a man's character doesn't necessarily exactly mean she is poorly written. But with the track record we have, let's just say it's not the most original concept, okay? There have been tons of tests that have popped up over the years that some use to gauge how much female representation there is in popular media or how well it is done. One of the more popular ones that originally started off as a joke before gaining traction was the Bechdel test, a concept born from a comic strip from Alison Bechdel and her friend Liz Wallace in 1985. It states that a piece of media passes said test if 1. It has at least 2 female characters in it, 2. These characters must talk together, and 3. The discussion has to be about something other than a male character. You would be surprised just how many popular movies fail this test, but a lot do, such as The Avengers and the entire Lord of the Rings saga. There are hours of footage in that saga, and we don't have that? Where are the ladies? I know there's one lady that looks like me. Hi. With the ears. Hi. Though this particular test isn't the only one that exists, and it is flawed. Just because a piece of media fails this test doesn't necessarily mean it has poorly written female characters. There are a slew of tests, such as the Makomori test, the Duvernay test, and the Sexy Lamp test, among others, that can help you point out poorly written, underrepresented characters. The Sexy Lamp test is hilarious to me because the rules are, quote, if you can replace a female character with a sexy lamp and your story still works, then you're a hack. Which is so funny. We can use some of these tests as well as just looking through some of the character story progressions in Genshin Impact to see if they pass or if they are in fact poorly written. So one day I was on YouTube and I saw this lovely thumbnail by Pogmaster Atsukuri, and my first response was, really? I thought the female characters were written great. Before I watched the video, I tried to think about what the video's argument could be and what my argument even was. Why did I think that the women were written well in Genshin? Well, I grew up in the early 2000s in the good old US of A and was used to not seeing women in movies having a lot of power, or they were just being there for like the guys. I loved young adult novels because it showed females a little older than me toppling governments, and I thought that was kick-ass. Shout out to Katniss Everdeen. I was used to watching an action blockbuster movie with my mom and seeing half-naked women like every other scene. So from my perspective, seeing characters like Jean, Ningguang, and A all hold massive amounts of power over their nations made me think that they were the coolest ever. I liked how they were just naturally in charge, right? The story didn't make it a big deal that they were women and, oh wow, a girl boss, Slay, you step on those men, girl hunty. You know, it wasn't so fake. Jean overworks herself and she has issues setting boundaries with herself, and she's way too hard on herself, girl. A is dealing with the tragic loss of her twin sister and then was forced into a role of power that she wasn't really made for, and her nation suffered because of her actions in trying to pick up these pieces that she was never ready to deal with in the first place. Ningguang is a true rags to riches story and ended up destroying her precious jade chamber, the symbol of all the wealth that she's worked so hard to accumulate in order to save her country, and then she built it again, okay? Like, let's get into it. They are badass, and I think a lot of the women in the story are. I mean, hey, if you replace the main female characters in each Archon quest with a sexy lamp, well, either nothing would get resolved or there wouldn't be a plot to begin with. They obviously passed the Bechdel test too because, oh wow, there are a lot of women and they have plenty of conversations with the other that ranges from literally anything going on. Sometimes it's boring, you know? But then I thought about it some more and thought, well, not every character is like this. We do have a good amount of female characters that feel super identical, like Ganyu, Kaching, Jean, Noelle, and the like. I was not super surprised when Atsukuri made this point too. It was the argument that the overworked waifu was a trope that was very played out with a few of the characters in Genshin, and that some characters characters like Kokomi, Ganyu, and A didn't have fully fleshed out stories or lacked proper treatment for their individual storylines. Atsukuri would point out the lackluster story quests with some of these characters and called for a better character type than the same one repackaged over and over again, but just with a different cutesy design on top. Atsukuri's video is great and brings up a lot of good points, and it is also interesting when put into conversation with Chill with Aster's video, who also made a video on this topic. Aster's videos seem to reflect a lot of my initial thoughts about the women holding positions of power. They found merit in characters that seemed the most simple and bland, like Ganyu. Aster seemed to be hype as hell about the range of representation of women in this game, from kick-ass to quiet and reserved. Aster did make this video 2 years ago, so I am not sure if they have changed their mind since, but also, arguably, the most dire of writing choices surrounding the female characters in Genshin was happening around this time too, with Genshin having improved since then, but more on that point later. Before making a conclusive statement myself, I wanted even more opinions because to some, this is a very subjective matter. And so, I opened yet another Google form to ask you, the rat sewer, where you fall in this debate. And, well, 1,132 of you had a lot to say. Thank you guys so much for the interest and for taking the time to submit. I was, of course, physically unable to go through every single one because I'm just a girl in a non-binary kind of way, but I went through quite a lot. And let's just say the results are in, and they are mixed, to say the absolute least. When it comes to women's writing in Genshin, some say it's great, and others say it's horrendous. A lot of the opinions I read were people pointing out how women's writing started out very bad, in that they existed to fit into a trope, like the overworked waifu or the mommy type, with Jean and Lisa being the first culprits of these respectively. But the writing has since grown, and now we have incredible characters in the recent regions like Freminet, Navia, Nahida, and others. Others just said mid. You know, they walked into the Google form, typed mid, and walked out like a Chad. I respect it. When I asked you guys about the designs in Genshin, it was a lot of the same, honestly. Some were like, oh my god, so pretty, so distinct, so creative. Genshin just eats on character design. Others say they wished less female characters were so sexualized, with less of an emphasis on their boobs and legs, with tight clothing or slightly risque outfits like the clothes Shenhe, Ganyu, Rosaria, Lisa, and Eula wear, to name a few. So from all these ranging and very drastically different opinions, where do we find ourselves? From the extremes of the writing and designs are horrid to I think they are improving and we are in a great spot right now. I will stand right here and decree that Genshin Impact's writing of women characters is fine. Because, well, fine is fine. Nobody weeps because the weather is fine. No monarchs were overthrown because their ruling was fine. No artworks were burned because they were not masterpieces, but merely fine. Okay, that was a reference. Don't worry about it. I got carried away. Anyways, I think the writing is fine. But that goes for everything in Genshin, not just the women, dare I say. Okay? Mayhaps a hot take coming, I'm not sure. I am of the opinion that Genshin does an incredible job at painting a beautiful and lore-rich world, right? The world building is wonderful. There's so much to uncover and the plot is engaging and the issues we run into are captivating and the concepts behind all of the characters I think are just so cool. I just think that Genshin struggles in its execution of these concepts sometimes. You know, I think the women in this game are written better than most games and most media. They have their own lives, their own goals, ambitions, worries, and fears. Some are a little quiet and lackluster, and yeah, they totally drop the ball on some of the women's writing, but you don't think it's solely a women issue, if that makes sense. For example, Kokomi, right? Kokomi unfortunately finds herself in one of the worst Archon quests, arguably the worst, depends on who you ask, and that in turn I think plays a part in stifling her character. She is this genius commander, but when she shows up in that one battle cutscene, homegirl kind of like swims in, blows a few bubbles, serves a little bit of super cute, and that's like kind of it. She doesn't really do anything, and we don't really see her actually do the genius work that everyone around her says that she does. They do add some dimension later on in her story quest that she is not really built to lead, and that she often needs to recharge in a cave by herself because her people just love her too much, which I think would add a lot to her character if we saw her killing bitches on that battlefield or cooking up something genius and diabolical, because then we would have seen two sides to her. But instead, we got one side, that's the cutesy general, and then the other, which is the cutesy general, but like a little eepy. It stifles her by a lot, but also Inazuma was not the best written region, so it stands to reason that a lot of the characters would be affected by this too. People were mad that Kokomi fit into another overworked waifu trope, but then when Aito hit the scene as another overworked not waifu, arguably still a waifu, but not the point, people were still mad and called him boring, even though y'all don't get him like I do, but that's okay. So at least that's equality. We also have to remember that this is a gacha game, unfortunately, and that is heavily going to affect the writing style. Arguably, the format of gacha, where the goal is profit and releasing characters every other millisecond, is not the most conducive format to storytelling. Hoyo is operating on one simple principle: profit first, art later. And considering the genre, I think Hoyo's doing a fine job with the art portion. According to priority data, the fan base makeup of Genshin Impact is 55% male and 45% female. It's almost half and half, but I assure you in the early days of Genshin, it was probably leaning more heavily to the male side. So in the beginning regions, we got tropes like the overworked waifu and the mommy types, because those are appealing to the fellas. A lot of the women's designs were and continue to be fan servicey, which I don't think is inherently bad in my opinion, because hey, you know what? Boobs sell. It's a don't hate the player, hate the game kind of situation. I do think that this would be in disgusting poor taste if these early women, Lisa, for example, who was kind of made to cater to the fellas, were just pure fan service and had like zero depth and intrigue. Yes, Lisa is a huge flirt with the traveler for the player to self-insert, and her design, well, let's just say has a mind of its own sometimes. But also I find her story intriguing. I think they can execute that story 10 times better, but I really like the story of her being so accomplished in her past that nowadays she just wants to sleep in, read books, and enjoy life and not do any work. I find that really sweet, and it gives her a character that I don't normally see in anime situations like this. Not every character has to be a Ningguang badass. They can just be late to work and be a little eepy, you know? That doesn't necessarily mean that she is a flat character. There's nothing flat about that woman, okay? Let me be real. I mean, look at how many characters we have. Oh, sweet Jesus. Just by nature of how huge the cast is and how gacha is set up, we are going to have seemingly flat characters. But if we look into each character more, we have a whole world behind each one. Though, the execution of those worlds are the issue. The sexualized designs, I don't mind, because one, hey, you know what? I'm gay. Okay, and two, the women are still treated with respect. We have male characters like Mika, for example, who fits into the socially awkward shy boy trope, and hey, couldn't give a shit about Mika. I'll be so real. I'm so sorry, Mika lovers. More for you guys, okay? Don't care about him. But I am sure if I looked into his character story some more, there's going to be something interesting about him and his backstory, I'd hope. And that is for the people who give a shit about Mika to look into. I myself love Nilou as a character. Her story quest really resonated with me, having been in a similar position to hers, as I have found myself arguing that the arts are just as important amongst a sea of academics. Others find her and her story quest boring, and that she just fits into a girl next door archetype. But for the people who are interested in seemingly tropey characters like Mika and Nilou, we can take the time to look into them more and find more of a backstory for them. This affects both the guys and the girl characters, I believe. We had amazing character development for Albedo, but it was locked behind a limited event, which is a gacha problem, so only a few saw it. Others may see him as boring if they never saw this part or don't know of it. The issue with the writing of some women characters is not a sexist issue, I would argue. It's a Genshin gacha issue. They may not show enough of a character, or they drop the ball on their story quest. But if you care to look, there's a story and a personality behind each character. The women aren't written as the woman sidekick who falls in love with one of the male characters. They each have love and attention given to them in each of their stories. All in all, I think the women's writing is better than most. Could be better, but it's fine. I don't believe that the women are written in an inherently sexist way. If the writing is bad, it's because Hoyoverse struggles with that often across the board. Though, in recent regions like Sumeru and Fontaine, they have really been improving by a lot. Yeah, some women are lackluster, and sometimes their stories flop a bit, but not every single woman character does, and they have a lot of depth, and some of the men suffer from this too. I do not think the male characters are more engaging or are more complicated as a whole. I do not perceive an overabundance of sexism in this game, and you know what? Hey, that makes me happy. So, now that we have collectively decided that the women are treated fine, since you are in agreement with me, I have decided you can't not be. It's my video, my rules, okay? Let's see if this treatment is reflected in the fandom. I'm sure this is going to be great. You know what? All of this research would look so pretty, all organized on a website to peruse easier. Maybe I could make one with the help of today's sponsor, Squarespace. You guys might already know that Squarespace is the best place to go to when you want to create a website, and it's literally so easy, girl. I can't. I'm still working on my own website, and today when I was working on it, my goal was to add links to our Rat Sewer merch store. Hey guys. And look, it's so easy. They have a really cool feature where I can change the frame of each picture, and I chose the egg looking frame because that just looked really cool and I liked it. And because I'm using an existing layout of a website that Squarespace provides, I was able to quickly switch out their example photos and links and replace them with mine own. The grid system they have was also pretty easy too. Here you could see me measure out how one picture fit within the grid so I can match it with the other picture. It looked pretty, don't it? It looked real pretty. Also, if there are products you want to sell, you can easily turn your website into a storefront as well. They provide tons of tools to make this simple, with search engine optimization options, as well as a professional being one click away to help you make your store stand out. Visit squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you realize just how much you like it, go over to squarespace.com/eissocial to get 10% off your very first purchase of a website or a domain, and to let them know that I sent you. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the wonderful world of Reddit discussions. So, first off, I want everyone right now to give me the Hunger Games 3-finger salute thing, because I sacrificed my mental well-being and witnessed horrors beyond anyone's comprehension. And oh Lord, have I seen titties? And not in a good way, all right? I'm a woman and boob enjoyer, and even I was like, oh God, stop. So, the fandom. Let's talk, okay? So before I dive in, let me show you my credentials, okay? I have been around in fandom since elementary school, and I was on Tumblr in middle school, and I don't want to see any of you bitches again saying, we can tell. Stop, I know you can tell. I've been around the block when it comes to witnessing the rise and fall of online communities. Let me just say, the Genshin fandom, just as rotten as the others, okay? People like to say, oh, this fandom's the worst. No, this fandom's the worst. Buddy, they all are the worst, okay? The bigger the fandom, the closer it gets to being the worst. It's just statistics. So every fandom is bad. I don't want to hear, okay? In my time on the internet, I have grown to be accustomed to two types of fans engaging with a piece of media, usually. The first group usually consists of straight men, and the second group consists of, well, everyone else, okay? This is very evident in the Genshin Impact fandom. Of course, there are complexities to their groupings. Some may find themselves in more nuanced situations, and this isn't clear-cut, nor is this a science, but just a general humble observation. There is a name to this phenomenon which these groups kind of like fit into, which is the curative versus transformative fandom communities. The straight male side of the fandom usually concerns themselves with how to play the game in the best way possible. Meta. which is an acronym for Most Effective Tactics Available. They often stick to the confines of what the game gives you, which is the curative side. Meanwhile, the other side is very often queer and or queer gendered and or has a huge percentage of women identifying people in it. And it focuses more on doing things in a transformative way, taking the characters and lore, throwing them in a box and shaking them around, making fanfiction, expanding on and or twisting the existing canon into a personalized fictional take of it, drawing fan art, and writing about the male characters kissing each other. There's levels to it, of course, but just in general, this is how the Genshin fandom plays out, and in turn, how a lot of the fandoms play out. In the Google form, I also asked you guys what your experience was with the fandom and asked how you think the fandom treats the female characters, and this time it wasn't as mixed as the previous responses. A lot of people pointed to the dude bro side of the fandom as the part of the fandom that treats women the worst. A lot of entries point to the practice that the dude bros engage in, which reduces the women's character to just her physical features and doesn't really care about the character as, well, a character. I mean, hey, you know what? This isn't a hot take, okay? Men objectifying women? What? Say it isn't so. The people that held this opinion in the Google form would usually also say something along the lines of, the queer or female circles are much safer. And to an extent, yes, but also I mean no at the same time. Let's start to break this down with specifics, okay? In order to do an investigation on how each side of the fandom treats the women characters differently, I have chosen two websites to explore. Archive of Our Own, a popular fanfiction website also known as AO3, and the ever infamous reddit.gov. Yay! AO3 will help us see how the female characters are treated by the feminine, queer gendered, queer side of the fandom, and Reddit will help us investigate what the dude bros are up to. Okay, so first, how do I know that these websites house these communities? Well, according to Jin Tuck's market data report that was last updated December of 2023, 74% of Reddit's user base is made up of men, while only 25.8% of the users are women. Meanwhile, for AO3, Lauren Rose and Mel Stanfill held an internet survey for the fan demographics of the site in February of 2023, whose results state that a staggering 53.7% of users on the fanfiction site are cisgender women. Cisgender men make up only 5.39% of users, and non-binary users were second place at 13.4%. The top sexualities of AO3 users were bisexual, asexual, and queer in the top three, with straight users hitting fourth place at 13.9%. So yes, guys make up Reddit, and the girls, the gays, and the theys make up AO3. Also, I do want to note that this investigation will skew heavily towards representing the Western part of the fandom, but we will also talk about some parts of the Eastern fandom too. Let's start off with a bang, with our male-dominated side, Reddit. To give you a tour of my experience on Reddit, please say hi to E from the past, who filmed this as they searched in real time in an act of true hard-hitting academia. What I did for this portion of the research was make a list of female and male characters and try to put them together into pairs based on similar traits that they may have. For example, I paired Arlecchino and Dotori together because I thought that these two characters were pretty comparable. I then went and searched for each of these characters' subreddits to see what the tea is and what the convo is and compare the findings. And, well, I'll just let me speak the rest, okay? Hey, hello, it is E from the past right now. I went into the bowels of Reddit and I immediately okay, let me just show you. So, okay, here, we're on God's internet, reddit.gov, okay? So I'm gonna do this, ready? Mona. Okay, so I do, oh wait. Is it r/? Hold on, wait. Okay, so, okay, I don't know how to use Reddit. Immediately, we got r/Mona. Is that a peach? Anyway, and then immediately, NSFW. All of these are NSFW 18+, means not for safe for work. That means there are erotic things on there. I don't want to die from YouTube's gun, so I'm not gonna click on that, but your brain could fill in the rest of what's on those subreddits. But I put in Mona mains, 20K members, here we are, r/Mona mains, amazing. Boom! Immediately! Girl, I just got here. Girl, at least buy me dinner first. God, 13 hours ago, non-OCR. Yeah, girl, I could tell. Holy crap, can I even show that? Boom, ass shot. That's immediately Mona mains, r/Mona mains, right? Okay, now let's take a gander. r/albedo. If you are following, you can notice that there are no r/albedo NSFW. They just do not pop up. I'm sure it exists. r/albedo mains, it's 22,000 members. Okay, let's click on it, right? Click on albedo. All right, cool. We got some meta, right? We gotta add more meta. Bye. Oh, look at this cute. Okay, oh, look at this beautiful artwork. He's beautiful. Okay, okay, a video. Okay, Sparrow. Right. Where are his nuts? It begs the question, where are his tits? This is so f***ed up, okay? Let's see if it holds true for others. Okay, that counts. My bro got his nipples out. r/Ayaka. So we put in r/Ayaka. Already off to a great start, guys. Ayaka mains 61,000. Wow, a lot of builds. This is giving very much the albedo subreddit. So let's do r/Ayato. Oh, let's go! We've got it for roll 34 for Ayato. Okay, equal. It's equal. Time to look at Nilou, okay? Nilou armpits? Nilou mains 32,000 members. Okay. Sledge. Honestly, love to see it. Art. At the beach, NSFW. Nilou swimsuit, NSFW. Good morning, NSFW. Yep. Those are tits. But I don't remember Nilou carrying such a rack. Let's do A and Zhongli. We're gonna see. I'm worried. Right in NSFW. 144,000 members! It's got more than the rated mains. That is more than any of the other communities that we've seen so far. That is crazy. Okay, let's go to Raiden mains, okay? Raiden mains. Raiden doing yoga. NSFW. Okay, we got strongly NSFW up in the house. 736 members. No, that is so few. That is not enough. Okay, I want to look at r/lumine. Okay, so we have two separate NSFW subreddits. A combination of whatever that is. That's what, like 84,000 members? So let's go on lumine mains and we'll compare it to aether. Main. Cute art immediately. Right. For Skimpy. Okay. Skimpy. All right. Okay. We'll look at dehya. Lumine and Skirk. Okay. Let's look at aether now. Okay, we got one aether NSFW, 3.4 thousand members. Aether mains, let's look. Proposing to the harem, part 2. Wow, have to block that out like crazy. We didn't see any NSFW on the Arlecchino subreddit, but we did for Arlecchino on the aether subreddit. So I'm seeing a whole lot of women, not a whole lot of aether. There we go. There it is. There's the harem. There it is. There it is. Eula and Sarah being in aether's arms. That's not his arms. There's another one I'm not going to show. Okay, it's aether with Kaching. There's another one, aether with Yaimiko. Middle of negotiations. Arlecchino. Yep, that is Arlecchino. That is Arlecchino. Okay, so the findings for this are, if you stumble upon a male Genshin character subreddit, you're gonna find a lot of normal stuff, meta. Rarely will you find anything NSFW, but if you stumble upon a girls subreddit from Genshin Impact, you will find NFSF. It's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Sometimes it's immediate. It really depends on the character. The Aether versus Lumine subreddit was, I think, the most telling for this Reddit communities than any of the other examples, because for Lumine, you got a bunch of sexualizing of her in various different situations, just kind of by herself, sometimes with other, girls in the cast. But you go over to Aether, a lot of it is NSFW, him with women. So, for example, Arlecchino, when we went to her subreddit, there was honestly nothing. I could find basically nothing super NSFW about her. And yet when I go to Aether subreddit, I found several comics of him with her in a very sexual way. We live in a society. Yeah. Okay, back to me. I think it's so funny that at the beginning of filming, I was all excited and like, let's go. And then at the end, you could just kind of like see me hollowed out and like defeated. It's so funny. I literally stopped recording and I was like, Okay, so here are some of my thoughts. The guy characters barely had an NSFW presence, which I'm not surprised by because guys make out the majority of Reddit, but the ladies were very popular, let's just say. The art that I couldn't show was a lot of AI art of the ladies in very similar saucy situations, let's just say. There was a lot of meta talk and gameplay talk with builds and such with both of the genders, which represents the curative aspects, but a lot of the R-rated artwork showed the ladies so out of character. I'm so sorry. Not to nitpick, but A would never do that. Okay, stop drawing her like that. The Arlecchino comics had me jaw dropped, cause in what fucking universe? Sorry. Let's also say that honestly, all the ladies were drawn the same with exaggerated assets and kind of looked like they were all acting the same, as if they were all the same character but just looked different. To continue with the eastern part of the fandom, my trusty friend Stone sent me the doujin website that they frequent a lot for when they want to read fan-created works made predominantly by and for Japanese fans. When we go to this website and we go to the adult section and we click on the adult doujinshi made for women, we see a lot of the male characters kissing each other, okay? So yaoi, again. Here are some examples of the covers, and yes, okay, some for sure contain X-rated content, but aw, look, the covers have some beautiful art, and it looks like tame and kind of like really pretty. But then when you go to the men's section, yeah, I can't show this. A lot of body pillows, a lot of creative liberties being taken with the anatomy of some of our favorite Genshin women, a lot of real women cosplaying the characters, engaging in events that are not canonical to the Genshin universe, okay? Awfully, some sexualized versions of the little girl characters, so, you know, all in all, 0 out of 10. It seems like the Reddit side of the fandom and the dude side really sexualizes the women, which is typical. Sadly, women existing in a story just to be the hot chick and just to make the men drool is not a new concept. So, let's see if the women are treated with more respect on the other side. AO3, aka Archive of Our Own, is a fanfiction site typically for the people in fandom who are a little bit older. The interface and tagging system is a bit more complicated than most fanfiction websites, but because of this tagging system, we can get some really great data just up front to give us a good indication for what is popular in a particular fandom versus, you know, what isn't. So, when you venture to the Genshin Impact category on AO3, you will immediately notice that there are 907 works that have been created. Like, oh, shoot. Wait, hold on. Geometry Dash? Which 89 of you are making fan fiction for Geometry Dash? Okay, anyways, clicking on the Genshin tag gives us filters on the right to quickly jump to the content we want to see. Let's click on characters because I'm in the mood to read some angst fic about Navia. Okay, okay, here we go. Let me look. The most popular character that the Genshin fandom has written about is Child, with 35,950 works. Not too surprising. Zhongli is second place at 31,000. Okay, Kaeya, Diluc, Xiao, Aether. Oh! Lumine! They got our first female character in 7th place with 20,820 fics with her in it, though that could be for self-insert purposes, but let's continue. Then we got Venti, Schley, Scaramouche, Albedo. That was the top 10 most popular. Okay, let's look at the most popular relationships, okay? Let's go. We have Child and Zhongli Yaoi at 14,000. Understandable. Then we have Alhaitham and Kaveh, peak, honestly, at 10,000. Diluc and kaeya, and then Diluc and kaeya again. We got Venti and Xiao.
Hi.
Yeah, yaoi. More yaoi. Okay. Not many women. Just not any, actually. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that on the side of the fandom that is predominantly female and or queer gendered or queer, the guy characters are a lot more popular. And as a person who is on the female/queer, gendered queer side of the fandom, I myself have observed this as well. There is just way more fan-created transformative work for the male characters than the girls. AO3 with these numbers showcase this excellently, I think. I see some arguments online that this is because the women characters are just like not as interesting as the guys, which I just completely disagree with. I think we mistake the guys as having more personality than than the girls because there's just so much fan created work for the guys than the girls, so we are just exposed to them more and think them more complex than the characters we aren't exposed to that much. But like, what do we make of all these findings? So now what? Well, for one, I think we can safely say that Genshin Impact women are not treated the best by the fan base, and their writing in Genshin is fine. The female/queer side of the fandom definitely has a preference for the male characters for varying reasons. The dude bro side of the fan base really likes anatomy and often reduces the female characters to their anatomy. The Genshin woman primarily exists in the eyes of the fandom in one of two ways. Either not at all, or only in a bunny suit. Either she isn't interesting enough, or she's there to be posed and to be gawked at. I find a lot of faults with Genshin as a game, but being overtly sexist is not one of them, so I don't think we can point at the game and blame it entirely for having boring female characters, because girl, you and I know that's just not the case. But for this conversation to be a productive one, we should just not be pointing blame like at all. Just because a queer gendered person or a cisgendered woman writes fanfiction solely about male characters doesn't necessarily mean that they are misogynistic, okay? And just because a straight guy follows a bunch of subreddits filled with naked Genshin Impact women also doesn't mean he is a full-blown misogynist either. Also, I'm not in the position to be shaming dudes for looking at half-naked women when I got this half-naked man resting perched upon my left shoulder, okay? Even though it's there as satire and as a joke, the irony is not lost on me, okay? Do not think for a second that I'm not aware that his tits are out and I'm complaining about women's tits being out, okay? Don't worry about it. I got it. Checked the box. But it is worth a moment for both of these groups to stop, pause, and reflect on how and why they are interacting with media in these ways. Fiction is just that, okay? It's not real. You can objectify the hell out of a fictional female character while also being super respectful of real life women. You can also only enjoy male characters while also being free from misogyny. But you know, sometimes when it comes to issues like this, there is an overlap because, hey, we live in a society, okay? I am not going to sit here and point fingers at any of you and say, hey, you aren't enjoying fiction properly, asshole. Okay, because that isn't productive and it's just kind of like an ass thing to do, because who am I? The fiction police? Relax. I wanted this video to serve as a way to start a conversation and as a tool for you, the fandom person, to take a moment to just like reflect. There are conversations to be had about how morally gray women are treated differently. That's a whole nother video I plan to make, so this will most likely be a series, okay? And also how right now there's a huge fight online over why there are more male-male yaoi fanfiction than female-on-female fanfiction or yuri fanfiction, which is also a whole nother video. This video isn't those two. This video is acting as an introduction. Do you have a favorite female character and yet can't name a thing about her backstory or personality, but you somehow have calculated her bra size? Well, mayhaps stop and pause and ask why. Do you find yourself disliking a female character, but if you were to imagine her as a guy right now, would she suddenly become one of your favorites? I'll be so honest. This is me with A, okay? I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not some perfect moral do-gooder, man. I just be thinking and I just be yapping. And you guys click on the video, so you know that's just what happens, okay? I don't hate A or super dislike her, but honestly, if she was a guy, I think I actually would like her more. And when I realized that about myself, oh shit, bro. Internal misogyny got hands. And now because I realized that about myself, I now observe how I interact with media more because of it. So to answer my question at the beginning of the video, people don't really care about the female characters as much as the guys. This is from both sides of the fandom. Now, on the question of why this is the case is going to be reserved for the other videos in the series that will definitely include a lot of theory. But for this video, I've decided that we shouldn't feel obligated to like female characters more. But I do think it is healthy for someone like me to give you the facts and trends of media consumption, and for you, the viewer, to take it to reflect on yourself. And by just through learning, observing, and time, mayhaps people will give a shit about female characters some more. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, like and subscribe, or I'm going to show up and stare at you menacingly. Comment your thoughts if you agree with me on any of these takes, what you take away from the data that I have given you, and also any other topics you would like me to talk about in the future, okay? Please watch any of my other Genshin Impact Discourse videos or my overall fandom Discourse videos if you are interested. If you want to be treated as royalty and you want to see videos a few days early and you want to get shouted out at the end of every single YouTube video, mayhaps consider becoming a member on our Ko-Fi. The link is right here, and also it is in the description to click on should you want to go ahead and do that. So this video is already on there early, and you can also see new videos early in the future, and you also get a cool role on Discord. There's a bunch of perks. There's a bunch of perks. Join us over there on Ko-Fi. Let's do it. It's kind of like a Patreon. Follow us on twitch.tv/eissocial to hang out in real time, and follow my socials if you feel so inclined. All right, well, I've been E, and if I don't see you on Twitch, then I will see you in the next one. Bye!